June 2025. Wow, what a month for aviation, right?
Yeah.
It felt unusually turbulent.
It certainly did, more than just the usual ups and downs.
Yeah, we saw these huge headline-grabbing incidents, things making global news. But then there were also these quieter shifts happening behind the scenes. So today, for this deep dive, we really want to tackle that question. What actually happened in the skies and on the ground this past month? And, maybe more importantly, what does it tell us about where air travel is heading?
That's the key question.
Our mission here is basically to cut through all that noise. We've gone through, well, a stack of aviation news reports, analysis documents.
Lots of reading.
Yeah, lots of reading. All to give you a kind of shortcut, a way to grasp the key incidents, those regulatory changes maybe you didn't hear about, and the emerging challenges that really define June 2025.
And it's that contrast you mentioned that's so interesting.
Exactly. Between the dramatic, front page stuff and the quieter but really impactful policy and tech shifts, that's where the real story often is.
Absolutely, because while, yes, crashes and near misses grab headlines, and understandably so,
Of course.
the deeper insights for aviation's future, they really lie in understanding the systemic effects, how these events ripple outwards.
Right.
We need to look beyond just the one incident and ask, okay, how does this challenge our safety thinking? Does it force changes in procedures or even aircraft design down the line?
That's a perfect way to start because June kicked off with a massive shockwave felt everywhere. The tragic Air India Flight 171 crash,
Devastated.
just a truly devastating event. And chillingly, the first fatal crash involving a Boeing 787 Dreamliner.
That's the critical point, the first for that airframe.
So June 12th, the 787-8, it crashes shortly after takeoff from Ahmedabad. It actually struck a residential building, then exploded.
Yeah.
The numbers are just grim. 260 people died. And that includes 19 people who were on the ground.
Unbelievable.
Only one person on the plane survived. It wasn't just, a terrible local tragedy. It immediately became one of the deadliest crashes in Indian aviation history.
And it forces that immediate reevaluation you mentioned. Assumptions about this very modern aircraft suddenly look shaky.
Exactly.
And what's really critical here, I think, is how this specific Dreamliner failure, it seems different. Unlike maybe some past incidents tied to, say, manufacturing flaws or specific maintenance.
Right, like battery issues early on.
Exactly. This one, it feels like it challenges the models the industry uses for risk assessment itself. It pushes beyond known failure modes.
A black swan event, maybe?
Perhaps. It certainly forces us to confront that possibility, and that prompts a reevaluation of, certification processes for whole aircraft types, not just single components. That's a huge systemic ripple.
And it wasn't only the big commercial jets having problems. June saw other just heart-wrenching events that remind us, risks aren't only with the major airlines.
True.
Like on June 21st, down in Brazil, the Santa Catarina hot air balloon crash.
Great, I saw that report.
A tourist balloon. It caught fire midair. 8 people killed, 13 injured. It's just awful. And it turns out it was the deadliest balloon accident since that one in Egypt back in 2013.
Wow. Yeah, it highlights risks across all types of aviation.
And then just days before that, June 15th, back in India, the Uttarakhand helicopter crash. A Bell 407 helicopter. It was heading the Kedarnath shrine. It went down. All 7 people on board died, including a toddler.
Oh, terrible.
And India's regulator, the DGCA, they immediately suspended the operator, Airline Aviation, pending a safety review.
Which is the right move, a swift response. So yeah, these incidents, different scales, different types of aircraft, but together they paint a picture of a really tough month for aviation safety and the immediate regulatory fallout that follows.
But it wasn't just the fatal incidents that showed the turbulence in June. Even when, thankfully, no one was hurt, some events really underscore these persistent operational challenges.
Like the ground incidents.
Exactly. Like the Hanoi runway collision, June 27th. A Vietnam Airlines Boeing 787-9, it actually clipped the tail of a parked Airbus A321 while it was taxiing at Hanoi Airport.
Ouch. During taxiing?
Yeah. No injuries reported, thankfully, but both planes had significant damage.
That's serious damage.
And now there's a formal investigation looking into ground control operational procedures. It just makes you realize the intense precision needed, even just moving around on the tarmac.
Absolutely. The ground environment is incredibly complex.
And then think about the Belgian royal flight disruption down in Chile, June 26.
Ah, yes, the flat tire.
Right. The royal couple's Airbus A340 got a flat tire, caused delays. And apparently this came after another technical delay they'd already had.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it just shows that even these really high-profile flights, they're not immune to just routine operational snags.
No, definitely not. And this whole collection of incidents, from a first ever fatal Dreamliner crash to balloons, helicopters, ground collisions, technical snags, it really forces us to look hard at the state of aviation safety overall.
Are these just isolated blips? Or do they maybe hint at some underlying stress in the system somewhere? It certainly suggests, a need for constant vigilance across every part of the industry, every phase of flight, from takeoff right through to taxiing back to the gate. It's a whole system challenge. So, okay, we see all these incidents happening. What's the actual takeaway for us, for travelers? Are the regulators responding well? Are these changes enough?
Well, it certainly means a push for more empowered pilots like we saw in India, and a continued focus on those systemic things like fatigue.
We are seeing some active responses, right? Especially on the regulatory side. India's DGCA, for example, they brought in new weather safety norms, right after all this.
That was significant.
Yeah, now pilots are actually encouraged officially to put safety before schedules.
As it should be.
Exactly. These new rules give pilots more discretion, basically, to return or devote if the weather's bad, without feeling pressure from the airline about being on time.
And that directly addresses the increased risks, particularly during monsoon season there. It's a solid step.
It feels like a really big step towards actually putting safety first, not just saying it.
And you see similar proactive approaches elsewhere, like in Canada, their TSB, the Transportation Safety Board, they've got ongoing investigations into several June incidents, including a runway excursion out in Chilliwack.
Okay.
And their annual safety bulletins. They consistently flag things like pilot fatigue and maintenance scheduling as these recurring worries. So it's not just about reacting after a crash, it's about trying to build deeper resilience into how things operate day to day, addressing systemic factors worldwide.
Okay, so beyond the physical risks, the things we can see, June also kind of pulled back the curtain on a different kind of vulnerability.
You mean cybersecurity.
Exactly. We have to talk about this invisible enemy. Because the airspace we fly through now, it's not just physical, is it? It's deeply digital.
Increasingly so.
And we saw reports about that notorious hacking group, Scattered Spider. Apparently, they've expanded their targets now to include airlines and airport IT systems directly.
Yeah, that's worrying.
And this isn't just theoretical. Hawaiian Airlines, for instance, they actually experienced disruptions that really set off alarm bells about airline cybersecurity across the board. Their methods are pretty sneaky too. Phishing emails, SIM swapping, basically tricking phone companies to hijack employee phone numbers to get into their systems. It really feels like a new front line of vulnerability for the whole industry.
And what's so critical to grasp here is that this isn't just, a data breach, stolen passenger info, which is bad enough.
Right.
But this is about the fundamental operational integrity, safety itself. A sophisticated cyber attack could theoretically disrupt air traffic control, ground ops, maybe even systems on the plane. So it means now airlines have to be just as rigorous about their digital defenses as they are about, say, physical aircraft maintenance checks. It's almost like needing a cyber airworthiness certificate alongside the traditional one. It's a fundamental shift in how we have to think about aviation security now.
That really drives home how these big global events, things happening far away, can directly mess with your flight plans, even hit your wallet.
Absolutely.
June also really highlighted just how complex and, turbulent our skies can get because of geopolitics.
Definitely. The Middle East was a prime example.
Yeah, huge airspace volatility there. After Iran launched missiles at that U.S. base in the region, over 160 flights had to be rerouted.
That's a massive disruption.
We even saw a Qantas flight literally turn back midair. And major hubs in the Gulf, like Doha and Dubai, they were significantly impacted. And then you add another layer of complexity, GPS spoofing. Apparently, there are over 200 incidents a day of GPS signals being faked or messed with.
200 a day, that's staggering. And incredibly dangerous for navigation.
Right. So all of this, it translates into higher costs for airlines' fuel, insurance premiums go up, and ultimately that can trickle down to affect ticket prices and flight availability for you, the traveler.
And it raises this really important question about, what are the responsibilities of airlines in such an unpredictable world, and where do passenger rights fit in?
Yeah.
Take that Etihad fine controversy in Australia.
Oh, I remember reading about that.
Right. An Australian couple, they wanted to postpone a flight because they were worried about the conflict in the region.
Understandable fear.
Totally understandable. And Etihad charged them $3,500 to change the booking.
Wow, that's steep.
It sparked this huge debate about passenger rights during geopolitical crises. When does an airline's need for operational certainty override a passenger's legitimate safety concerns? Where's that line between customer flexibility and geopolitical necessity? It's a really gray area that needs clearer rules, frankly, for everyone involved.
Definitely. And even beyond those big geopolitical events, just everyday operational hurdles kept testing the system in June.
Weather, for instance.
Yep. New York, June 22nd. Severe thunderstorms just grounded flights at JFK, LaGuardia, Newark. Widespread delays everywhere.
Familiar story for that region, unfortunately.
And then that was followed by forecasts of a major heat wave, which just adds another layer of challenge for managing air traffic, especially in extreme weather.
Heat affects aircraft performance too, so it's a double whammy.
And globally, those reroutes we mentioned across the Middle East and Pakistan, they're still happening. Flights avoiding no-fly zones, leading to longer flight times, higher fuel burn.
It's become a persistent reality.
Yeah, these aren't just one-off things. They're ongoing challenges that airlines and, by extension, travelers are dealing with constantly.
And yet it's really a testament to how dynamic aviation is, that even with all these disruptions, the industry keeps moving forward. It's not just reacting to crises, it's also pushing ahead with strategic developments, airport changes, new routes.
That's the part that I find really compelling. Even with all these massive challenges, crashes, cyber threats, geopolitics, the industry is still innovating like crazy, especially with things like AI. On the airport side, look at Mumbai. They're dealing with a big spike in bird strikes.
Ah, the flamingo.
Yeah, apparently linked to growing flamingo populations nearby, and also, maybe, poor waste management attracting birds. So now authorities are planning to meet with environmental groups to figure out how to mitigate that.
That's a complex environmental interface issue.
Definitely. And then, on the other hand, you have the Surat airport expansion in India being put on pause. The state government suspended funding after the Airports Authority of India basically said, we don't need the land right now.
Okay, so shifting priorities there.
Yeah, shows how projects adapt or get delayed based on current needs and assessments.
But growth and connectivity, that definitely isn't stopping. We saw some good news there. Elot, Polish Airlines, they announced a new route, Gdańsk, to Istanbul starting January 2026.
Oh, interesting.
4 times a week. And Vietjet, they're starting nonstop Ho Chi Minh City to Auckland in September 2025.
Wow, connecting Southeast Asia and New Zealand directly.
Yeah. And SES just resumed their Copenhagen to Nuuk, Greenland route as of June 27th. So new connections are still being forged.
Plus new planes are still getting delivered, right?
Exactly. Hainan Airlines took delivery of its first Airbus A321neo assembled in China, which signals, ongoing fleet modernization happening globally.
And that brings us neatly to innovation, which is where things get really exciting, I think.
Agreed. Lots happening there.
The Canadian aerospace sector seems particularly active. Bombardier landed a defense contract from Saab. Halifax Airport upgraded its security screening using new AI systems.
Cutting-edge tech rolling out.
And this company, Air Fairness, launched an AI tool to help passengers figure out compensation claims.
Okay.
That could be really useful for travelers caught in disruptions.
Potentially, yeah. Streamlining that process.
And we're seeing more advanced tech, too. Airbus showed off a new aerial firefighting system based on their P400M transport plane.
Oh, interesting application.
And IAG, the big airline group that owns British Airways and Iberia, they're rolling out predictive engine maintenance using AI, trying to catch failures before they happen.
That's huge for safety and efficiency. Proactive maintenance.
And Embraer opened a new MRO, maintenance, repair, and overhaul facility down in Brazil, boosting their capacity there.
Right. So if you connect all these dots, what you see is technology, especially AI, becoming this absolutely critical tool for both safety and efficiency. It's changing everything from predicting when an engine might need work to making security faster, even helping passengers get compensated fairly. It's this constant drive for innovation that's really going to shape how air travel evolves, hopefully making it more resilient and safer even as these new threats keep popping up.
So let's try to wrap this deep dive up. June 2025, it was undeniably a month marked by some really significant accidents: that tragic Air India Dreamliner crash, the helicopter incident, the hot air balloon tragedy.
A tough month on the safety front, no doubt.
And we saw those persistent geopolitical tensions really impacting flight paths, costs, alongside that growing, almost invisible threat of cyberattacks targeting airlines directly.
Major challenges on multiple fronts.
But amidst all that, the month also showed us, continued regulatory evolution, new safety rules, ongoing investigation,
Adapting and responding.
and this relentless push for technological innovation right across the industry. AI, new systems, new routes.
Yeah, the aviation world is just incredibly dynamic, complex, always adapting to whatever the new normal throws at it.
Which brings us to our final thought for you, the listener. When you consider this really intricate dance between global events, super fast technology changes, and let's face it, the unavoidable human element in aviation.
Which is always there.
Always. How do you think the industry can actually strike the best balance? That balance between the constant drive for efficiency and growth and the absolute non-negotiable need for safety and resilience.
It's a core tension, isn't it?
It really is. And what new challenges do you foresee coming down the line as air travel keeps evolving in this pretty unpredictable world we live in?
Maybe think about how these insights, these events from just 1 month might shape your own view of travel, security, even global affairs the next time you're waiting at the gate or looking at a flight map.
Yeah. The story of aviation, it's always unfolding, isn't it?
Absolutely. And we're here trying to help make sense of the most important chapters as they happen.
Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into a very busy month in aviation. Until next time, stay curious and stay informed.